Welcome to So You're Ready to Date. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Angie.
And let's dive in. We have a really big, important, super great topic this week. We're talking safety when it comes to those first few dates because you've decided, you've met, you think this might be a good idea. So we're going to talk safety this week.
And kind of what that looks like, kind of diving in, right? Last week, we kind of left off with talking about how you, Lisa, you were talking about your personal thing where you don't like to let that go on too long when you're starting to talk to someone, just because somebody might represent themselves a little bit differently with who they are online versus who they are when you actually meet. The energy might be different, the connection might be different, and you want to make sure that you're kind of getting to the bottom of that right away.
Yes, definitely. Because I think I mean, I'm as guilty of this as anybody, where you have this like ease of like, it's just a text. It's not anything that I have to say to a person. And so it feels like you build up this intimacy way too early. Sometimes if you for me, if I stick to texting too long and not bring that in-person meeting a little bit sooner into that process.
I agree with you, because I think with the texting also, the conversation escalates more quickly because you feel like you know somebody, but you haven't actually had any type of deep, meaningful conversations.
Yes, I've noticed that with a couple of like the last people I matched with on sites where we had like good text chemistry. So yeah, all of a sudden the questions got like, I don't want to say they got deep, but they also kind of get a little bit personal, maybe faster than if you kind of like, okay, we're going to put the brakes on this, kind of keep it light and breezy. And then if we meet, feel like we have a little bit more in-person chemistry, then maybe we can start to dive into some of these deeper, more personal topics.
Right. So we're talking about going out and having that first date, and we'll get into all the different types of ways to be prepared for that. But first and foremost, I think it's important to talk about that online safety and what you do to prepare to meet somebody that you've never met before. And I guess I'll dive in and start with my number one rule when I'm meeting somebody new for the first time is to meet in public.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
If you're an outdoors enthusiast and you like to go hiking and you like to do all of these things where you're kind of in solitude, it gets easy, or sometimes it can feel easy to think that, well, that would be fun because we both enjoy doing that. And my rule is, even though I enjoy doing that, the first meeting is always in a public place where there are other people around.
Yes, I agree. The number of men lately that I've had to explain that, no, I am not going into some wooded area with you alone, and then being kind of taken aback by that is kind of shocking to me in this day and age that, no, you're not coming over to my house. No, we're not going someplace where it could be remote and or private. I want to make sure there are witnesses. At this point, quite frankly, there need to be a lot of people around. I need to have easy escape routes. I need to have that ability to feel safe, even if it's just a bunch of other strangers, to know that the likelihood that you're going to be a jerk is far less if we're in a crowded bar than if we're someplace fairly remote, or maybe that has a lot more solitude than a busy restaurant.
Good point. Really good point. And I will be the first to stand up and admit, when I was younger, that wasn't nearly as much on the forefront of my mind. And I really think that it should have been more important to me at that point in time. I was very lucky. All of my experiences were good. All of them ended well. As a matter of fact, one of those experiences where I stepped into a not so safe environment actually ended up in a 12-year marriage. So, there was something to that, but looking back and thinking about all of that and how awkward some of that could have become, or having some other dates that weren't quite as good, where we did start out in public, and I was very grateful for starting out in public, that has become, as I've gotten older and as I migrated back into the dating world, that has become a number one rule, is always meet first in public.
And again, this is, we both, Angie and I, have done those dumb mistakes, and some I've done more recently than I care to admit. And this is not about shaming anybody for having made said dumb decisions, because regardless of our age, we all just have those moments where we think we're going to be okay. We just kind of throw caution to the wind. But this is just, and it's a great reminder for all of us that sometimes we need to stop and take a reflection, be like, oh, that's right. I need to be a little bit more mindful of my safety, my surroundings, kind of what I'm doing, because just because I've had good luck up until this point doesn't mean that that is always going to be the case. And so I think it's a great reminder for everybody that safety should always be part of your dating checklist. Part of your getting to know new people checklist is that safety aspect.
Right. And I would say, again, I put that as personal number one for me. Even before that, I guess, is trusting my gut. But even when I trust my gut and my gut tells me it's okay, I still meet people in public. So I think 1 and 2 are kind of interchangeable for me.
Yeah.
That number 2 is trust your gut. If something feels a little off, if everything looks okay and feels okay, and suddenly there's just one thing that feels a little bit off, know that it is okay to respect yourself enough to say, I'm not comfortable with this, and to choose not to proceed. Or if something, if everything feels good, but you have other things coming up, it's okay to reschedule or do whatever you need to, but trust your gut. Always, always, always follow your gut reaction, because your intuition isn't going to lie to you. And the better you get at feeling and hearing your intuition, the better your life is going to get, just in general, all the way around. That way, when that little voice in the back of your head tells you to bring an umbrella because it's going to rain, even though the sun is shining, you'll take that umbrella because you know that it could rain and it's okay to have it with you. And so the same thing goes when you're meeting people and when you're inviting people into your life. Trust your gut and know that your gut is going to lead you in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm going to share a little anecdote I've shared with friends in the past, where it's like I had matched with a guy on Tinder. We had chatted for a couple of days, kind of over the weekend. And then I was getting into that point where, like, okay, we need to figure out a time to meet. We had set a date, things were going good. And then about 2 or 3 days before we were supposed to meet, he changed it. That wasn't the big deal. The big deal was when he decided to change it, something started to feel off. There was this like gut check where I'm like, I was excited in the beginning, but now this just doesn't quite feel right. And again, sometimes you aren't going to have that concrete thing where it's like, no, he sent me a message that was kind of rude, or there was just something that started to feel off, and kind of, we tried to reschedule again and I still couldn't ditch that feeling. And so that's when I like broke the whole thing off. I'm like, this isn't even a thing that I want to potentially see if we can meet and be okay. There's like, nothing was feeling good in my instinct about this. So it was basically saying, hey, I've enjoyed chatting with you, but I just don't really see this as a fit. So good luck. So that's where you kind of like, the people pleaser in me, I was like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I promised to do this, but like I've used what we've kind of been talking about, the more you trust your gut, the more it'll tell you, and the more you kind of been like able to refine what's going on. And I would just at this point much rather him think I'm a jerk than me end up in a situation that is way worse because I didn't trust that little voice that was telling me, I don't think this is it.
Right. Absolutely. That is so true. And here's another thing, right? It might not be right today. It might not have been right when you were scheduled to meet him, but that doesn't mean that things couldn't change and that it could be right down the road. But you trusted your gut, you trusted your instinct, and you did what was right for you in that moment at that time. And that's okay.
And usually how I know it was the right thing for me, the automatic sense of relief that washed over me when I just kind of like sent that best of luck, I don't think this is a thing. I'm like, okay, yep, that was right. I was supposed to listen to that voice, because all of a sudden I don't have this like pit in my stomach. All of a sudden I'm not losing sleep over this. So, it's all of those little things that can be like, okay, sometimes I still need that confirmation that yes, I was on the right track with this.
For sure, for sure. If you're paying attention to it, it's there for you to see too. And I want to, this is a little bit off topic, but you said something that I think is really important and gave a really good script for what you can say if you change your mind and decide that it's not a good fit, and how you can gracefully back out, and how you can not go somebody, not stand them up, but actually give them closure on the situation too. So I love the way that you put it. Will you repeat it again?
Yeah, it's kind of like this basic script I've used a couple of times where I'm like, hey, I've really enjoyed chatting with you, talking with you, however your communication is. I don't really feel a connection. I don't feel this romantic spark, or it's sometimes like my schedule and your schedule don't seem to be coordinating. I don't think this is a fit right now, but I wish you the best of luck in your search going forward, because I it doesn't, and here's the thing, you don't need to explain anything further than that. All you really need to say, I've enjoyed texting or chatting with you. I don't think this is a good fit. Best of luck. It can be as simple as that. Don't feel like you have to pull out all of these reasons and excuses and to justify and to prove why this isn't a fit. If you know it is, that's enough. So communicating at least that much to somebody is way better than, blocking them, ignoring them, not returning any text. That's way more of a kindness than, I think, even going into a lot of detail about why maybe you feel it's not a fit. But I think just that communication of like, nope, this is not for me. It's been fun, but now we should move on and see other people.
I love what you just said, that you don't have to justify it and explain why. You are doing what's best for you. You are moving on, and you are taking control of who you are. And it's okay. You don't have to explain it. If you don't feel like it's a good fit, you don't need to let anybody talk you into why it is. And the more you give the whys for why you're backing out, for why you're saying that you no longer meet, the more you explain that, the more they're going to try to talk you out of it or change your mind. And nobody out there, nobody deserves that. And you get to make the choice that's best for you, and nobody needs to try to convince you otherwise. So refrain from giving a why and just say, you know what? I'm sorry. This has been great. I've enjoyed chatting with you, but I don't think it's a fit.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
All right. I guess number 3, I guess, for knowing what safety tips are, is talking to friends, family, somebody else, letting people know where you are going, what you're going to be doing, and who you're going to be with.
Yes. Kind of in, is maybe a little bit of a backtrack, but most of the dating apps have like a messaging feature. And without a doubt, at some point, you or either the other person is going to maybe ask for your cell phone number. That would probably be like my first thing. If you don't feel comfortable giving your cell phone number, don't feel like you have to do that. You can still arrange everything. You can still chat. You can still do everything via the messaging on the app. And that, just until you've met in person, if you're not feeling comfortable people having your personal number, continue to use that. And sometimes that can be a first test for some people. If they like throw a fit, if they start kind of balking that you won't give out your phone number, that might be a hint that maybe this isn't a good thing. So keep it on the app as long as you feel comfortable. Nobody says you have to give out that personal information just yet. So I wanted to make sure we got that.
Yeah, you're right. That is one that we should back up and put forth there as well. But even if the app that you're using doesn't have that, Google Voice will offer a free number. You can go out and sign up for a Google Voice number, and you can get a phone number that is not your personal number that's tied to your cell phone in that way. And go get a Google Voice number, and that way you can still remain anonymous, but you can text on your phone.
Yes. So just wanted to make sure that we talked about that as well, because I know, we've had conversation about that. You're like, want to make sure you're as safe as possible. And all of this is to your comfort level. Again, nothing that says that you have to push past what you're not comfortable doing. And so starting with those various options, if you need to stay on the app or find a number that keeps you a little bit private, to kind of give yourself that permission to do that as well. But then getting back to our other point, which was letting people know where you are. And again, the number of like men who have been kind of surprised that I'm like, yeah, I need your name, first and last name. This is where we're going. I've often sent, sometimes I'll send a picture of who I'm actually meeting, because yes, I am going to let as many people know as possible, or as I feel comfortable knowing where I am, because I'm meeting somebody new for the first time.
So yeah, even if you don't have a picture of somebody, you can still let them know names. You can still let them know where you're going and what you're doing. And that kind of leads us into the last point, or the next point, which is set up an out, have a
Mhm.
check-in. You're letting people know what you're doing and who you're with, but do you have a check-in? Do you have a way to gracefully exit that situation if it's not what you anticipated, or if it's not comfortable for you after you get there?
Yes, which is why I think keeping it relatively simple for that first meeting, like a coffee date, is really good, because it's not necessarily expected that it's going to be maybe over half an hour, 45 minutes, even an hour, or a drink at a bar, or, whatever that might be. Keeping it someplace where it feels like there's a relatively easy out if you need that. There have been times where between like my sister and my friends, it's been like, okay, I'm going to text, we're meeting at 7, I will text you at 8:30, let you know what's going on, and let you know if I need an assist to help get me out, because sometimes I am not always good at thinking on my feet. And sometimes you just need somebody to back you up, saying, hey, this is my sister, she's having an emergency, this was nice, I'm going to have to leave. I will check in with you later, or whatever that is.
Right. So just having that prepared, having that script prepared is super helpful. And knowing that you have somebody that's expecting you to check in and call just to kind of go that route. It can be super helpful when you're planning those first dates, especially when you're doing a lot of first dates. Hopefully you find somebody very quickly, but you do have to know what you don't want in order to know what you do want. And we all know that dating can be hard. So sometimes, especially when you're starting, there might be multiple first dates. So finding that support that can help you out with that and be prepared to answer those calls and is there to support you through that process.
And you had mentioned something too, and we talked about it briefly, like on the last podcast, was like, don't be embarrassed to have like a script of things. So I think we had talked briefly about like a script of topics for like first date conversations, but equally as important, or maybe what's the word I'm looking for, useful, would be having those scripts of like, if the date is going well and you want to extend it, if the date is not going well and you want to end it, if the date is going so but you're not really feeling like making it go longer, finding all of those situations and seeing if you can't write out something in your words, in your voice, that you could, run to the bathroom, flip open the notes app on your phone, read through it, kind of get it in your brain, and go out and tell somebody about that. But don't be ashamed to have to write this stuff down. Don't think that you have to come off the fly to have all of these discussions and these topics and this communication. Let yourself be prepared so that you feel, when I'm more prepared, I go into those situations with a lot more confidence, because I think I can handle any situation here. So let yourself be prepared, have that confidence to be able to have whatever conversation needs to happen at that date.
Yes. And one other little tip in there, Google is your friend.
Yes.
You can Google just about anybody. Social media profiles, fast people search, just Google in general. They have LinkedIn profiles. So you can do a little bit of checking.
Yeah, let it kind of be your friend. Who knows, sometimes even telling like the people in your life, they might know somebody who knows somebody who knows that stuff. So yeah, I think being as thorough as you feel good about. Nobody says you have to do like a full background check unless that's really what you want to do. But yeah, take advantage of some of the tools that we have online so that you feel more comfortable walking into this situation with a new person.
Absolutely. And that, again, those tools are there. They are not the end all be all. And
Right.
so this episode feels really like a paranoid episode to me. And so I want to come back around and maybe in a little bit of a wrap up and say, most people are good.
Yes.
Most people aren't going to be a problem. Most people aren't going to put you in a bad or super uncomfortable situation. Most people are good. So this is not a distrust humanity episode, but it is a be sane, be sensible, use some common sense, practice some follow some safety practices, just some common sense safety practices to keep yourself safe during dating. But remember, above all, don't be scared to do it. Most people are good.
Right. Because this ultimately is supposed to be a fun process. This is supposed to be about having fun and getting to meet some new people and practicing new skills and maybe stepping outside of your comfort zone. So I think that just like cautiously optimistic. You're like, all right, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of trust, kind of hope that you're going to be one of the plethora of good people out there until you show me otherwise. But yeah, that little bit of healthy, awareness, let's just call it awareness at this point of like, all right, what are my surroundings? Who am I with? All of that kind of stuff. Just in the end will make you a better around person, not just for dating, but just I think in general, just to having that awareness as to your gut instinct, what feels good and what doesn't, and then just going out there and being safe.
Yes. And I know a lot of times these are safety practices that we as women think about and employ and are on the top of our minds too. And there's more. You go out for a drink, don't leave your drink unattended, right? That's a big one too. But these same rules also apply to men. Men should take those same safety precautions that women are taking, because maybe not as many, maybe there's more men out there that are psycho than there are women out there that are psycho, for lack of a better term. But everybody should have some sense of, here's how I plan to be safe when I go about starting to date.
Yes.
When you're dating, a lot of times you're dating a stranger and you really don't know who they are. And although most people are good, you do want to take those precautions no matter what sex, no matter what gender, no matter where you are in the dating process. These tips can apply to everyone.
That's an excellent point, that it's, yeah, while we're coming at it from that like woman perspective, it definitely is something that anybody should be aware of when they're in a situation where they're going out and meeting new people.
Yes. Yep. Agreed totally. All right. And next week, I'm not sure what we're talking about yet. Do you know what we're talking about next week?
I don't know that we've finalized that idea yet, but maybe we'll switch it to be something that feels a little bit more upbeat since we got you good and aware of what's going on. Now, I think we need to start talking about what happens on that first date. We've done the apps, we've done the safety check. Now you're actually going to meet somebody. So I think it's probably time for us to talk about first dates, how to survive and thrive through them.
I like that. How to survive and thrive through your first date. So be sure to come back next week, because that is going to be some fantastic info. And we're going to get you all set up for your Friday night date or your Saturday night date for you to go out, have some fun, relax, and not be nervous when you head out the door, when you get all dressed up and head out to have some fun.
Exactly. Yes.
All right. We'll talk to you all next week. Bye.
Bye.